So let's start with the conversation. So, so let me tell you, we are hosting this series of event after a long time. We took a break after lockdown last year. So just to reintroduce myself, I am the director of Startup Grind Surat chapter. And earlier we hosted founders like founders of Crick Heroes, Sending Blue. We also have had a very good pitch battle last year, and entries from Surat have gone to the world map. So, and on a professional side, I have been a lot in touch with startups when it comes to recognizing startup in the Startup India scheme. On a professional side, I have worked with a lot of startups to prepare a valuation report or to handle them when they give their pitch to their investors. On the community side, I have been part of the co-working space iCowork. So as a local community, we house a lot of startups. We have more than 180 seats at iCowork. And on a global map, we run the same community within the global name of Startup Grind Surat. So that helps to bring the benefits to startups from the global angle as well as the local angle. So this is about me. Now, let us start with the conversation, Nikhil. So, in 2021, uh, April 2021 particularly, I was looking at researching myself on a different asset class altogether. So I did research on a lot on funds of funds for startups. मेरे client के लिए particularly because a lot of my clients wanted to not directly invest into startups, but they wanted to invest into a fund which ultimately invests into startups. I researched a lot on, I would say, on the problem in real estate, which is fractional ownership and the easy exit part. कि जब हम कोई जमीन खरीदते हैं तो मुझे 10 फ्रेंड्स को मिलकर अगर जमीन खरीदनी है तो बिकम्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट पर्टिकुलरली एट द टाइम ऑफ एग्जिट बिकॉज एक फ्रेंड को अगर जमीन बेचनी है और दूसरे को नहीं बेचनी है then the transaction doesn't happen and there is a proper glitch as far as the exit is concerned. So when I was doing that, I came across a very good different model, a different asset class, and that is where Grip Invest was discovered, particularly by me, and I reached out to Nikhil because I was also fascinated by the way the returns are increased not just because of the structuring but also because of the tax benefit or tax planning involved. So that was a story about how I discovered and I wanted to reach out to you, Nikhil. And so to start with the first question, in the last lockdown, a lot of startups I've seen have died down. But as we see, Grip Invest was launched in June 2020. So was it an idea which has come up just during the lockdown, or is it through the long-driven process of research, and it is just a coincidence that it was just launched after lockdown?
Hi, Mehul. First of all, thank you so much for having me as part of this session. Really happy to be. Mehul, I'm audible. Clearly
Yes, yes,
audible.
yes.
Perfect. Great. Just very happy to be part of this and also to talk to your guests and your different ecosystem partners. With respect to your question, you'll be surprised that Grip actually is a 8-year-old idea. You talked about fractional property ownership, and 8 years back, Grip was actually thought of or conceptualized for the purpose of fractional property ownership. Um, Not many people know, but the word GRIP actually stands for Group Real Estate Investment Platform, right? That's how we conceptualized GRIP 8 years back. But at that point of time, regulatory environment is very challenging, and we never started GRIP. In fact, what I ended up starting was a company in the mobility space called Chalo, which is now one of the largest private city bus operators across India. So I started that company and co-founded it in 2016. Um, from Chalo, one of the insights that came was that there are so many other assets that need to be leased. Mobility, for example, vehicles for one, are also assets that there is a requirement for leasing, not just real estate. When most people think about leasing, they think only about real estate leasing. But there are so many other asset categories that require leasing. And my experience with building a large mobility company gave me an indication that GRIP could be modified for that opportunity. We studied many other industries, including furniture leasing, right? Companies like what Furlenco and Rento Mojo are doing, and we realized that while individual companies are scaling their businesses by taking assets on lease, which are often financed by HNIs, there is no horizontal platform to enable this to happen, either for a large number of investors or a large number of companies. And that is the opportunity with which we started GRIP in 2020. It just so happened that it also coincided with the lockdown. And to be honest, our initial it was almost a fear that we would not have enough opportunities, right? Because as you know, as your team said, we are converting capex to opex. But if companies are not looking to do capex, where is the opportunity for grip? I think we have been pleasantly surprised, and in some parts, we have also made the right choice of industries which have seen a growth through the lockdown phase, and hence have created more opportunities for us. To just give you one metric, we leased to about 22 companies in FY21. On an average, those companies have grown their revenue 13% year on year, 13%. So despite the lockdown, the companies that we chose to work with actually had a 13% growth in revenue, and hence that created a lot of opportunities for us.
Okay. So just to before we proceed to the next question, I think I will share the screen to just make the audience aware about the product of Grip, or how as a user experience, how I see Grip as. So one thing I really liked about Grip Invest, it being a platform where within 3 or 4 clicks you reach the ultimate investment goal. So for example, once I click on view assets, there are 2 opportunities at present. So as I understand, there is an opportunity called Udaan where Grip as a platform would do crowdfunding from say more than I would say more than 150 to 200 investors who would invest in the range of 25,000 minimum investment, which can go up to any amount. And the total amount which you are planning to raise for Udaan is 3 crore investments, out of which 1.2 crore is fulfilled. So once I click next, whatever amount I would wish to invest, I would get the exact payment schedule, that if I'm investing 1 lakh at present, these are the payments which are going to be credited in my bank account. One good logical thing which I found was I can exactly link this payment with my mutual fund SIP also. So that would, so a return which I get from Grip and plus the return which I get from the mutual fund SIP, ultimately after 3 years or after the tenure of the project, I believe I would be able to get an IRR of more than 13 to 14%. Again, there is a pre-tax and post-tax different working, but ultimately once I click on proceed to pay, I would be routed through the payment gateway, and once I make the payment, I would be keep getting on returns from the next month. So this is how I pursue Grip. If you want to add something
Sure.
as a founder, of course.
Yeah, I think there are few things that we thought were very important from what the product must provide investors, and what investors have then repeatedly told us is what is exciting for them at Grip. First is larger ability to diversify away from stock market fixed deposits into a higher yield and obviously a higher risk instrument. I think that is number one. So you create a more wholesome portfolio. Second is within the diversification, we also come up with one deal every week, right? One new deal every week, which is often a different asset with a different leasing opportunity. So you must have seen Udaan and Furlenco. Today we will be launching another third deal, right? And next week we're likely to launch 2 more deals, which means that if an investor wants to say commit 5 lakh rupees on Grip, they have the ability not only to diversify in Grip as an instrument, but also within Grip to diversify in different leasing opportunities. The third factor is that, as you mentioned, Mehul, that you see fixed returns, but you also get these returns on a monthly basis, which provides a different type of returns for investors and allows them to reinvest it into something else or to match it to their spending requirements and create passive income for themselves. There are few fixed income products which offer this kind of returns to investors. These are some of the features. I would also say that our platform really prides itself on transparency. Whatever the investor requires in terms of information about making a decision is provided to them, right? All the numbers are very transparently provided. Who is the partner? What is the asset? Description about the partner, their financial information. And there's often investors contact us for more details, which we're very happy to provide. So I think these are some of the critical aspects. Just to conclude on because you talked about the platform, our track record has been something that we are excited and proud about. We are currently doing a leasing of about 12 crore rupees every month, new leasing of 12 crore rupees, with the current total portfolio of upwards of 50 crores. Um, we've executed about 45 lease transactions in the last 1 year. And we're proud to say that we haven't made a default or delay on any of the repayments. Against the 50 crores that has been invested on the platform, we have already returned 5 crores to investors, right? So we have currently a nil default rate on the platform, and I think that adds a lot of excitement for investors.
Moving further, so do I say Grip Invest is a platform for the investors looking for a higher return, or is it a platform for startups who want to go on an asset light model to raise fund through Grip Invest?
Yeah, that's a great question, and honestly, we battled with that for a long time, even as a team. Um, we are a platform for investors. That's the first. We are first a platform for investors. That said, no company can exist without making sure that everyone in the ecosystem is benefited, and you need to provide value both ways, right? Otherwise, at some point of time, your business is no longer sustainable. The way we do it today is to provide lease income, but we may in the future provide additional investment options for investors, similar asset-backed alternative investment options for investors. But our priority will always remain the investor, providing them with a great experience, good quality risk-adjusted returns, and comfort on their capital and their returns coming back.
Uh, how do you how is the vetting process as far as partners are concerned?
Sure.
Or can you share just some interesting experience around a partner to get more idea of the same?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about our vetting process. So we have internalized so we have three things that are internal to us, which are critical for it. One is a BD function, which is responsible for identifying partners. Second is a credit function. And third is an asset management function, because ultimately the asset is owned by the investors of Grip. Once a BD team, and for the BD function, we have identified certain criterias, or what we call guardrails, based on which they must select a company. Once that selection is done, and these criteria things, for example, the company we're leasing to must have a VC or PE investor, must have an institutional investor. Number two is they must have at least 3 years of operation. Third is they must have cash on their balance sheet to cover the next 12 to 18 months of operations if they're loss-making company. So there are criteria like this. Once the BD team identifies this, credit team evaluates these companies from a financial, promoter, investor, industry perspective, typical credit metrics, and takes a view on whether the required criteria are being fully satisfied or not. Okay. Finally, the asset management team takes a view on the quality of the asset and the OEM from whom we are purchasing it. For example, in the case of Udaan, we are leasing racks for warehousing. We get involved with the OEM to understand what are these racks, right? Are they good quality racks? What are the materials they're made out of? What is the secondary market like? What is the residual value that we're likely to get? Are we in a position to be able to recover them in the case of default? All of these things are part of the decision-making process. And if we get comfortable on both the asset and the company, that is when we go ahead with listing the deal. Grip is not a marketplace. Okay, Grip is not an Amazon where anything will get listed. Any company can find itself to list it. It's a curated platform where we list opportunities that we are comfortable putting our own money in, and in fact, the Grip team puts money in every single deal that is listed on the platform.
So Surat has been good as far as success of meeting good co-founders are concerned. So in Surat, we have good success stories where events में मतलब दो लोग मिलते हैं, next event में वो लोग co-founder बनते हैं, and the story goes from there. So is there any story around meeting your co-founder?
Sure.
At the same time, I would like to know, how do you station your team during this COVID process? So are they totally work from home, or something on the hierarchy of your team?
Sure. Uh, Fortunate that my co-founders were people I worked with in my previous organization, Chalo. So we've known each other for some time, and because we work very closely, I think we have a great degree of comfort and relationship, which allowed us to start a company, and despite working from home, have didn't have a challenge with communication and understanding of each other. So I think that was very critical. Um, I I don't have a very interesting story of how we met our co-founders, but like in most startup stories, you met up in a coffee shop, which for us was a Starbucks coffee shop in Gurgaon, and we just discussed the idea of Grip. We seem to all find it incredibly interesting, and things just started off. I think what is more interesting is the second part of your question, Mehul. We are now a 25 member team. We have hired all of the people in the team despite never having met them, and the team is spread across all of India. um, and it's been a year, but we have met our colleagues only once. We've never met them before. We organized a small offsite in Jim Corbett a few months back when things were better, and that is the only time that we have met our colleagues. So it's interesting times, it's different times, and I'm glad to see that Grip has continued and succeeded despite very little in-person interaction between the team, and we have had to do a lot of stuff to create the bond between the team despite being completely online.
So I also believe that a startup as fintech has to do a lot on the awareness front. So even if we talk about Surat, things have changed now post COVID, but pre COVID we had a pretty normal environment where कोई builder को या textile वाले को भी अगर हम loan देते हैं, we used to get 12-13% return. So platform like Grip didn't attract much, but now people have realized the importance of unsecured lending or the importance of just giving on the way of goodwill. So again, the rate of interest has decreased as far as FD is concerned. So now, what role do you play as a startup or as a fintech startup, particularly in terms of bringing more awareness amongst the investor of what the product is?
I think that's a great point, and especially with a new product and new platform, I think we have to do a lot from an awareness perspective. Apart from the blogs and the content that is available on the website, I think a most successful way of communicating to investors has been a bi-monthly or twice a month webinar that we do. There are two objectives of this webinar. One is we talk about Grip, we talk about leasing, we talk about the risks, we talk about the returns of Grip, but we also invite the founders of companies that we are leasing to talk to our investors on that platform, which allows investors to hear directly about the companies that they're leasing to and get comfort or decide not to invest. But I think that has been our most successful way of educating and creating awareness. I think there's a lot more from our side to do. Um, even if you're not allowed to do it, in physical meetings, I think a lot of our marketing focus is to create more educational material about leasing and about the investment process that Grip offers.
Onto that, yesterday just I was preparing the questionnaire. I came across few videos where you have acted as a host and taken a conversation ahead with few founders. So I very much like the concept of making understand the unit economics for each product. So I came across a video of Zippy. So I would like all audience to go through that video after the event, of course, where he has very beautifully explained what a unit economics for a startup is.
Yeah.
So that
In
also
fact,
gives a confidence that your money is going, like you have enough leeway that in a way that they have enough revenue to bring back your rent. Yeah.
yeah, I think that one is all of the videos are uploaded on YouTube. So any webinar that we do is uploaded on YouTube, and definitely you should go and see them. I think the unit economics point is important, and that is very core to our business. Grip only leases revenue generating assets. Okay. For example, Mehul, the chair you're sitting on is not revenue generating for you, for your business, right? And hence we would not lease it to you. What is revenue generating to Udaan is the warehousing racks, right? Because that is what they use to literally run their business. And hence we pick assets which are actually revenue generating, and hence unit economics is so important. Our view is that if it's a revenue generating asset, the company will take more care of it, and it will be the last thing that they stop paying money on. And that is a core part of Grip's business.
Okay. So can you give some parameters on the investor side, what is the post tax IRR or the pre-tax IRR generally?
Yeah, the general pre-tax IRR is around 20%. Okay, and I just to explain what IRR means, because it is not a commonly used phrase, right? IRR is a way of looking at returns when the returns come on a when there is a time value of money. 100 rupees today is more valuable than 100 rupees tomorrow. Right? IRR as a concept calculates the present value of all future receivables against the investment that you have made, keeping in mind the timing of those cash flows. Okay? Because our returns come on a monthly basis, hence IRR is an important metric, or the right metric to look at our investments. You can also see a returns calculator on our website, which allows you to calculate the IRR and give you more clarity about each returns. Now, to answer your question, typically the IRR is around 20% on a pre-tax basis and 12 to 13% on a post-tax basis. Okay? On a yield basis, that's how typically investors look at it. It comes to 7 to 7.5% post-tax yield and 11 to 12% pre-tax yield. Okay? You may think, why is the yield so low? This is because the money that you get in the first month as return, we don't assume any reinvestment of it. Right? If you were to reinvest that, as Mehul does with his SIP program, with the mutual fund SIP program, your yield and IRR will be much higher. We are not assuming any reinvestment, and hence the yield is 7 to 7.5%. We have also done a calculation where if you were to reinvest that money every month in another GRIP deal, your post-tax yield will actually be 12%. Okay? So that is the opportunity for the investors when making GRIP investments.
And as I understand, the way you structure it through an LLP, this 7% or 7.5% yield will be again tax-free in the hands of the investor. So if we equate it to an FD, if I divide the FD returns by 70%, then there will be a huge gap of in the 7%, right?
Correct. And again, FD returns typically come to you, when we talk about FD yield of 4 to 5%, that is a yield when you are holding to maturity. Okay. Then that is a pre-tax return. Post-tax return, that is 3%. And that is a yield to maturity. The way you should look at it is that 3% versus 12%, right? That is the delta between what a GRIP return offers you versus
Okay. So I was again interestingly researching on the LLP formation part. So I went to MC, I just searched, I understood that you make a new LLP with each project. So Pyrrhic Acid is the basic name which you give. So you reserved the names till I think 120 or 150. So how much LLPs you are planning to make in the next 1 year?
I think maybe a different way to answer question is our aspiration as a platform is to grow to about 300 crores in total deployment by FY22, March FY22. And whether we do it through LLPs or a different structure, that's a different matter. We're trying to figure out if there's a better way to do it. But yes, we see a large potential both from an investor demand as well as from a company side to take assets. And our aim is to deploy to get to about 300 crores by March 31st, 22.
So if I see it from a GRIP advisor point of view, the revenue model deals with charging a management fee from each payment, I believe. Is it on the payment or is it on the total deal size?
Payment. So we believe that our revenue should only come when an investor makes money. So we do not charge any upfront fees to the investors. On a monthly basis, when the investor gets their income, we charge a 2% fees of the income received on a monthly basis. So we do not get paid until the investor gets paid.
Okay. So again, my next research showed that within 3 months of launch, GRIP Invest closed its pre-series A round funding. With a lot of the attendees would like to know, like what was the deal about, the deal size, and the amount of dilution, if you can disclose.
We're very transparent as an organization, so happy to share. We raised a little bit more than 5 crore rupees, 5.1 crore rupees from Anicut Capital and Gemba Capital and some angels, including Anupa Mittal and Maninder Gulati. Anupa Mittal is the founder of Shaadi.com and Maninder is the chief strategy officer of Oyo Hotels. The dilution was 16%. So we raised 5 crores at a 16% dilution, or roughly a 32 crore post money valuation. So that was our first round.
Okay. And are you planning to raise any further investment
Yeah,
at present?
we actually signed a term sheet about a month back for our second round, which is our Series A round. We are raising $3 million in equity, roughly 21 crore rupees in equity. Because we have not yet signed the final documents, I'm not permitted to share the name of the VCs, but that is the round that we're looking to do, and we should be able to announce it in the next few weeks.
Okay. So, for the benefit of few other startup enthusiasts you would have in the audience, how does the discovery work when you want to approach to the investors? So, is it you who approach the investors or angel investors or VCs, or you make your startup discoverable so much that they would approach you in
Yeah,
a way?
I think the second option is definitely the best option. It is always good to be chased than to chase someone. So, definitely the second is best. But given, if especially if at a very early stage, it is often very difficult to get the right attention, right? And hence, your first round will probably be something where you have to reach out to investors. I think it's, if I have few lessons to share from my own experience, I think the first thing is you must reach out to people who are truly capable of, who are at that right stage of investing, right? Suppose you're very young and you're reaching out to a Tiger Global, it's not going to be an efficient use of your time, right? Tiger Global does not invest at that stage of fund. I see a lot of founders mistake of reaching out to all the funds, not considering the stage at which they're looking to raise capital. So the first piece of advice is to identify the companies. Typically, if you're doing the first stage, angel investors or family offices which are looking to make those investments. At your second round, obviously you look for different kind of VC funds, but I think that is important. Second thing is that at that stage, investors are looking most importantly for team and for the idea, right? Not as much for traction, but for team and idea. Make sure that you're prepared with those two answers, very good answers, to be able to be successful in raising the funds. Okay? I think that's important. Third is leverage your personal network, because once again, that investment that you raise in the first round is purely a reflection of you, of your capability as a founder. That's the only thing an investor has to go by. And the people who know you best are people you've worked with, personal network, your friends, etc. And you're likely to see more success when you go to those people, especially if you're doing an angel round. I think that's what worked well for us. If you look at our first round, it was a family office and hence not a VC, right? Who was ready to come in early. These were people who knew me personally or knew my co-founder personally and were ready to take a bet on us as founders. I think that is what worked for us to do our first one.
Okay. So, another question. To the audience, I would say the chat window is open. So, any question or any follow-up questions which, based on the conversation which we already had, I would really want anyone to just shoot it in the chat window, and I would like to just take it up by tweaking something if I wish. So, moving ahead, Nikhil, like, is there any risk or sensitivity when when the whole business or your whole business model works on a similar one type of product?
There absolutely is, right? For example, if suddenly we were not to be competitive on leasing, or for some reason there was to be a cycle in which companies are not looking to do new capex, I think that could adversely impact our business, and hence we are going to pilot a new product this quarter, where in addition to leasing, we are going to introduce a new investment opportunity, also asset backed, also fixed income, all the same characteristics. But I think it's important for us to diversify, and that's what we will be doing.
Okay. So, Sudhanshu Tripathi is asking that what happens to the principal amount which is invested at the end of the lease period, and what would happen to the asset at the end of the lease period? So,
Yeah,
let us take an example of 2 years lease period.
sure. So, Sudhanshu, I think it's a very good question, and let me answer your second question first. Right? Uh, Typically, the asset that we lease, and as in fact as a principal, the lease term is significantly shorter than the asset life. Coming back to Udan's example, the warehousing racks that we're leasing typically have a 15-year life, but we are only leasing them for 3 years. We do this because this is a good risk mitigation strategy. because you want to make sure that there is enough economic life left in the asset to be able to monetize it. We agree with our leasees for them to purchase the asset because it continues to be valuable to their business, right? So at the end of the asset life, the asset is sold to the leasing. We also find other possible buyers for the asset, other warehousing companies, OEMs, vendors who are able to repurpose or redeploy the asset as a backup option to that. And hence, we have clear visibility of the end of life value for the asset and to be able to sell it. Coming to your first question, the principal and profit are distributed to you as returns over the period of the lease, right? On a month-on-month basis, and then finally as the last payment or residual value. You can consider, whether you're getting principal plus profit every month as an EMI, whether you want to consider first principal and first profit, and then profit. That I leave, that we don't create that bifurcation, but effectively this is the way the payments happen.
Okay. So, what are the KPIs, if I say, which you look at when you want to term that you are growing month by month? So, is it only the amount of total investments, or is it something else? Like, I would also particularly like to know that what is the returning ratio, the repeating customer investment ratio, as far
Yeah.
as growth is concerned?
We look at several metrics. Obviously, the growth in the AUM is one of the main metrics that we look at. The second we look at is the growth in the users, because we want to make sure that we're building a platform for many users, right? Not for a few users to invest in the platform. We are currently growing new users by about 35% month on month. Okay? And that means we have a very diversified base of users. The third metric we look at is how many users are repeating. Okay? So currently, 40% of our users are on their second investment, and 10% of users are on their fifth investment. Okay? We are very proud of the number, right? For people to have repeated so many times in such a short period of time, and we constantly track this KPI. The next one that we track is referral rate. Okay? It's a very concept. It's a familiar in concept in marketing, that when you truly like a product, it is measured by if you're referring it. Okay? Last month we launched a referral product, and we've been tracking our referral rate since then, and excited that 15% of our users have already referred someone, right? And so those are the few KPI. I mean, there are many other KPIs, for example, NPA, etc. But from a user perspective, these are the most important KPIs that we target.
So, have you observed something where the customer would initially just invest 20,000, but then once he get the first month or the second month payout, he may invest more amount? ऐसा कुछ?
So typically, investor makes a second investment on 20 days of the first investment. So roughly after receiving the first return, and normally the second investment amount increases by 30 to 40%. So if you've invested 20,000 rupees, your second investment will roughly be 30,000 rupees. So we have seen an increase in the amount of investment as well as the frequency with which they invest. Maybe just to extend this case, so it takes 20 days to make the second investment, but it takes only 15 days to make the fifth investment. So investors, once they build that confidence, we start seeing them invest much faster.
Okay. Fine. So, like, what are the ultimate risk factors? Though I understand, and I would like to quote that I went through all the FAQs of the website for the first time. I found in a very lucid manner. मतलब कोई भी चीज ऐसी नहीं लगी जो extra है और जो कम भी है. But still, ultimately, it's a business, and when I'm expecting more return, there is some more risk. So, what is the extra risk which I'm required to take, and what precautions have you, being Grip Invest Private Limited, have taken to make sure that the investors are not, the money is not at stake?
Risk that an investor is taking, that the company who they're leasing to will close operations. That's the risk, right? And the asset will get returned. Mehul, is there a lot of disturbance from my side?
It seems so because I think we are the only two presenters at present. So
Just give me one minute.
Yeah, yes, sir. So to all the attendees, I really plan to host at least one good entrepreneur every month, and yeah,
This is better.
yeah.
Yeah. So the talking about the second part of your question, Mehul, what we have done to mitigate the risk is, if you, and maybe I can explain this. If you think of the life cycle of a lease, and we take a 3-year example, the first thing we discussed is diligence, right? That we do for selecting of the deal and the asset. The second is that we typically take a 10% security deposit from the leasing. This is taken in the first month itself. So if you invest 100 rupees, 10 rupees comes back to your security deposit. The third feature is that every month you get 3.5 rupees. If you make 100 rupee investment, you get 3.5 rupees back in terms of monthly rentals. So it's a very aggressive monthly rental that you receive. If you think about this for 12 months, 3.5 rupees at 12 months is basically 42 rupees. Okay. Plus 10 rupees of security deposit, 52 rupees. Okay. If you now say 18 months, this number comes to 73. Okay. So our view is that when we do a diligence, we at least have a view on the company for the next 18 months, in which time an investor recovers 70 rupees of value. Okay. Now, assuming that a company defaults, okay, the asset that we get back, to at least protect the investor, the capital of the investor, we need to recover 27 more rupees. Okay. Let us take a conservative view and say we can only recover 50% of assets. Okay. And of that 50% of assets, we can only get 50% of value. 50 into 50 is 50% of 50% is 25%, right? So 73 is already with the investor, another 25 comes, which is 98 rupees. So this is the view we have taken in terms of the risk of the investor. To cover that risk of the asset, we obviously look at the right assets to lease, the right partners to recover the assets, right people to sell it. We enter into many buyback arrangements with OEMs. For example, we do electric bikes where we have a buyback from Hero to purchase the asset in case of a default. So we have built many protections across the life cycle of the lease to protect the investor's capital.
So a good question from Sudhanshu, that once you have your model set, आपको तो बस 100 LLP बनाते जाना है और सब में से 2-2% या 1-1% मैनेजमेंट फी लेनी है. So when you raise investment from VC, where is the money you are going to put into? Is it more into technology or into more products?
Yeah, it's more into well, lots of things. Technology primarily. Our aspiration is to build, not to stop at 100 LLPs. Our aspiration is to obviously 300 crores by March 2022. Our aspiration for September is to get to 1,000 crores, which means that everything from a technology, manpower, ability to source, do credit underwriting requires us to build a large team as well as really strong processes. And to constantly innovate on this is where we are investing our VC money. We are also looking to introduce certain products for investors to safeguard their capital, for example, an FLDG. And for this, we will commit some of our equity money to create an FLDG for investors. So those are the things that we are spending money on.
So what role do you take on the depreciation part? Because there are few assets which I believe that just because the rate of depreciation is 40%, that is actually contributing to the increased IRR. So is it the way the things are planned?
Sure. So the higher depreciation rate improves the higher results in a better post-tax rate, right? Reduces taxation. But the pre-tax IRR has nothing to do with depreciation. It is purely a function of pricing the credit risk of that opportunity. So we are most concerned about the pre-tax IRR because that is what the cost of capital that the company pays. The depreciation and the post-tax is just a mathematical calculation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So deviating something away from the product, like you have a good, very rich background as far as your qualification and or the past experience is concerned.
Thank you.
What is one advice which you would like to give to the new entrepreneurs who are just building up a product or just started to build up the product very recently?
Sure. The first thing that came to my mind is to suggest that you must really build a calm company. Okay. I think I have made this mistake, and a lot of other founders, a lot of people I know have that we have this belief that startup is about working 24 hours, 7 days a week, and everything else has to go away while you're building a company. I think we have followed a very different approach at Grip. We work only 5 days a week. We tend to stop working at 6:37 in the evening, and we have a fairly peaceful existence as a company. We're a calm company, and I think that it is very important for founders to think about all of these things as they build their organization. um, I think the most important benefit of this is it allows me and allows my co-founders to think about the business, right? What we're doing wrong, what we're doing right, what we can do better. But often when you're doing executing 24/7, I think it really limits the ability to introspect. So one advice which may be contrary to what a lot of people believe is to actually relax, right? Build it calmly. You may think that this will slow down your growth, but it will actually allow you to put in place many institutional frameworks that will help you grow faster and in a more sustainable manner.
Good coined word which you give, a calm company. Same way, any one good golden advice for investments, particularly, or one.
Sure. Maybe I can give you two, if you don't mind. I think the first one is never invest more than what you think you're comfortable with, right? I often, whenever I speak to investors for Grip, I often advise that you should not have an exposure of more than 10 to 15% in alternative assets, right? Because alternative assets by category would probably be higher risk, and there is no point of taking more exposure to something and being uncomfortable with it. Investment should not be something that you're stressed about. You should be making investment because you've worked hard to earn that money, and now this money is working harder for you, but you don't have to take that risk for it. You should not be taking the stress for it. So the first thing is that don't stretch beyond what you can, and second is it's really important to diversify. Right? I see a lot of people putting all their money in one single instrument. I think it's important to build a diversified asset base, meeting different requirements that you have as an investor.
Your take on cryptocurrency?
Okay, that's a dangerous question, but because you asked, I'm still not convinced about it being a currency. I think there is, and I will also admit that I'm not the most informed person about it, but as an economics graduate, I'm struggling to see the how to call it a currency, and I'm unable to see the real what it translates into in the real economy. So I hence feel that trading and investing in cryptocurrency has a high risk because you're unable to link it to the real economy. There are many other risks of regulatory uncertainty, lack of clarity, etc., etc., and things that can move with such high volatility because of some tweet or something else. I think inherently becomes very dangerous as an investment instrument.
Okay. So, last question to you: like, if I ask you that many other startups may want to collaborate with you, then what sort of collaboration would be benefited to any other startup or anyone in Surat if you wishes to collaborate with you? What sort of collaboration would help?
The first point is that I don't believe that any company can build something in forget finance, but generally without help of collaboration. We as a company are incredibly open to working with other companies, other startups, and I would encourage you to reach out. We have social media, we have through our website, we've put out email addresses for respective teams, and you should definitely feel free to reach out. Whether it is about being a distribution platform to sell the Grip investments, if you are a wealth distribution platform, please reach out to us. If you're a company that is looking for leasing assets, please reach out to us. If you believe you can provide us some software products that can help us increase the efficiency of our service, please reach out to us. So I think that there are so many different ways in which we can collaborate. I can, just quoting one data point. If you look at a tech platform today, we have integrated with maybe 15 or 20 different services to just enable what you see on the Grip platform. And hence, we are very pro to finding the right partners for building Grip's future.
Okay. So, fine. Thanks, Nikhil. Before I conclude, I would really say it's a very humble interview, but at the same time, you've given some very good wise words. Being
Thank you.
a calm company, I will surely remember, and good options for collaboration. And thanks for saying that we can reach out to the company as and when, uh, if any other startup wants to collaborate. So, Nikhil doesn't know, but I've been in touch with one of the team member of Grip, and he's the marketing person is happy to share a link. So whosoever attendees would like to make the first investment to Grip, if they make it through this link, they would be getting 1,000 bonus. That I would just make sure to tally all the email IDs and everything. So I'll just drop the link in the chat window, and just to make a formal thank you, I think a few of my team members are also within the attendees. So I'll just ask them to prepare a key takeaway list. So just hand it over to them if they're listening. Palak or Saurabh, if you can just, I think I will have to make them the presenter. Just give me a second.
Sure. Maybe in the meantime, I can just just thank you, Mehul, and team for hosting Grip and me on this. I actually have very fond memories of Surat. I don't know how many of, I'm assuming most of you have been to the VR Surat Mall, but that was in the very beginning of my career, a transaction that I had done and helped the VR team set up the VR Surat Mall. So I have very fond memories of driving down to Surat. One of the first transactions we did at Grip was also with a company that is based out of Surat, which is Charge Zone, which is a provider of electric charging solutions. So great that this is, all of this, the next step of my relationship with Surat is this conversation. And I really appreciated and enjoyed this talk. Thank you so much for hosting me.
Yeah. So, Nikhil, whenever next time you come to Surat, I love if you can just drop down to iCover,
Sure.
co-working space.
We'll
So,
definitely do that.
so Palak, before we wind up, just some key takeaways.
Thank you for this session, sir. Grip is not Amazon, it's better. It's a curated platform where the team itself invests money and holds twice a month meeting where they discuss return risk with their investors and also invites the founder of the company to discuss the strategies with the investors. So the transparency is very effective. Grip is definitely a platform as it only leases a revenue generating asset for the entity it is leasing to. Hence, unit economy is maintained. And they don't charge any upfront fees and just a 2% commission on income fees. This is surely seen with the investors' trustworthiness as 40% of the investors invest second and 10% of the investors invest the fifth time. Their site is also curated as they have new deals each day. It leases up to 12 crore each month, totaling up to 50 crore till now, and have returned up to 5 crore to the investors till now. They have three very well curated teams to first select a company, second to identify the credit matrix, and the third to qualify an asset they are leasing. Lastly, Grip Invest is a Starbucks United startup in which you can invest if you're looking to diversify your portfolio and a trustworthy and transparent partner to earn an IRR of 21%. Lastly, we'd like to thank our ecosystem partners, MG, Suraj Jugaad, Ashwine SBNI, IT80 Orders, GPU Innovation and Startup Center. Thank you.
It was a great summary. Thank you.
Yeah. So, fine. So, we can leave the meeting and hope to see some other day. Bye.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye. Bye.